This podcast is for general information only. If you're after advice for your own situation, it's best you chat with a licensed financial advisor.
Hi, I'm Anthony Edmonds. I'm one of the founders of Aurellan Asset Management. Welcome to another one of our podcast series that we've titled Intergenerational Thinking. It's with great delight today that I'm here with Campbell Gower. Campbell is one of the founders and shareholders of Aurellan alongside Chris and I, and it's going to be a great opportunity to talk through Campbell's career. So Campbell, welcome. It's great to have you along. Tell me, take me back to the beginning of time, where did your career come from?
So I actually left school, went to work for Air New Zealand for 3 years. I was a management cadet, and it was a pretty difficult time for the airline, and it was reasonably uninspiring for me. And so they better stop doing that. And I went to university, and I did a double degree with the intention of getting into investment banking, and that's what I did.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. And from investment banking, I think you stepped into investing and buying into businesses. I think things like Charlie's, I think you were involved in at one stage.
So I stopped investment banking, but I continued doing that kind of work, but for myself. And I thought if I had a few investments in a few companies, then maybe that could keep me busy and put a little bit of food on the table.
Right.
And I helped one of the partners out of an investment that they had, and then they came to me and said, hey, look, we want to start this new business, and why don't you come in with us? And that was the start of Charlie's Fresh Juice.
Yeah. And one of the iconic, I guess, New Zealand businesses that I remember you got involved in was phil&teds. When I was a young parent, the constant argument always was, which buggy did you have, phil&teds or Mountain Buggy? I think the Mokopuna, the merino clothing for kids, is another business sitting alongside that, right?
Well, I think it's what investment banking probably teaches you in a way, is that you have to have the macroeconomics right for your business, that it has to work here and everywhere, or at some point someone's going to come and get you, right? So if you can sell successful in the US or New Zealand, then you probably do have a business. If you can only sell in New Zealand, then maybe it's not as good as you think it is, Yeah. And if you look at Mountain Buggy, they were probably a bigger business than me at the time they went bust. And they said we're a New Zealand-based manufacturer of a business exporting in the world. But if you look at their cost structure, they're really a European-based business manufacturing in New Zealand.
Right.
And when you look through that lens, you quickly see why the costs are always going to get them. So we had to transform that business and make it much more in line with our model to make it successful. That business is actually a lot bigger than phil&teds now, so I'm quite proud of that.
Yeah, and other manufacturing business, I think you were in the car industry, some roof rack business. I think another one around, what was it, the building industry or safety clothing as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
real businesses making and exporting and selling things.
Yeah, and I think the perspective we wanted to bring was that at the end of the day, there is a consumer for this, and perhaps these businesses can do a better job of enunciating what the qualities of that product are and building a brand story around that to enable people to actually understand what it is they're buying and why they're buying it. And that means you've got to do a lot at point of sale around some sort of hard assets there and training, but also just how you communicate what the values of that was. So with the Argyle business, we actually developed a system where it was a coded system where you would be as close as you were to the danger zone. So the guys who had jackets and welding up things in a steel furnace, right? They had this kind of logo, chevron, whereas the people actually walking around in the mechanic shop wearing a shirt is quite a different requirement for performance workwear. So it enabled people to really navigate to the solution they wanted really easily.
Right.
So we can actually bring that.
And it hasn't always been just business and sport. I think you're involved in the Phoenix Foundation, the soccer team, right? I think Phoenix soccer team. I think Phoenix Foundation were a band. I'm pretty sure you went in the band. It was the soccer team, right? 2000.
Yeah. And they mainly say football these days.
Football?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, you can see I'm a bit of a, that oval ball that bounces funny. But yeah, so Phoenix, you're involved with Phoenix as well. Back in, when was that, 2000?
Yeah. The Phoenix was really about getting a new license and feeling that there was an opportunity. We brought some right kind of commercial disciplines to running and owning a football team, that we could at least break even. And it's quite a challenge, right? I remember buying this book, thinking I better learn something about sports marketing. And chapter 1 was headed, why football teams will always lose money. Well, that's not a really great chapter heading for my first bit of research. But it was really about doing something for Wellington and trying to create some real value there, and a feeling that if we ran a good organisation, then actually the crowds would come. And in some of these instances, someone's just got to try and ignore the spreadsheet and the head and think, someone's got to step up and try and do something here. Otherwise, nothing happens, right? But you don't really know what is going to happen. So, I was one of quite a few people who got involved in that.
What about philanthropy and things outside of business? You've had involvement in different areas of that as well?
Yeah, I do a bit of that. And for me, that has to have some kind of underlying purpose. I can see they're trying to achieve something. So if I support it in this way, then they get to do that. And also to try and layer it in some way so that there's some way of creating a real connection with the people. So, for example, with the Royal New Zealand Ballet, I sponsored one of the sponsors for their tour of mainland China. And I organised some local sponsors to come and support that, people I do business with over there. And it was really about trying to move from a pure financial sponsorship to a way where we could interconnect with the suppliers and people who do business there, as well as the ballet here, and tell a story about how this is New Zealand and China communicating on a cultural level beyond just that we just do trade, we just import stuff from there. So there was a richness to that, something we wanted to be involved in.
Right. And all of us, from humble beginnings of Te Awa Muri, step me through what,
Well, it's still pretty humble. Yeah, I grew up in Te Awa Muri. It was a little town in New Zealand, and really felt we're living in the shadow of Cambridge and the Tron. So we're seeing bigger and better over there. And it was the sort of place where everyone had two jobs, and, your mum was always doing baking or fundraising for something, and the caretaker at the school also was our caterer at Cubs, and the panel beater was also the funeral director and this kind of thing. But everyone worked hard, and there's a great sense of community, and it really, I think, taught me a lot of resourcefulness, because we didn't have cars picking us up at school then. You basically get to school on your own, get home on your own, and you get to do fun things along the way. And I think that probably developed a sense of curiosity in me. I actually didn't start those businesses that you talk about, well, not all of them anyway. And like phil&teds, I ended up becoming an investor in and then growing that. And I bought Mountain Buggy out of liquidation. So I've actually bought businesses at one level and tried to take them to another level by doing what I'm doing. And if you think about what we've done in the companies around Phil&teds and Mountain Buggy, it's I'm enormously proud of my team, because they've really achieved a very great deal from New Zealand. We could not be further from markets that we need to be in. And they've pretty much won every industry award there is in that industry. There's 57 product innovation patents that we've earned, and we use those every day. And it's quite a remarkable achievement that they've made. We're really proud of that. All from New Zealand. Sometimes I think these things are a little bit like, I call it a dark suit outcome. You you pee your pants in a dark suit and you get a warm feeling, but no one really notices. It's that kind of, you do it because you feel you want to do it, not because anyone else is going to give you any credit for it.
I'm not quite sure I followed that analogy right to the end there.
I'm sure you can cut it out later if you need to.
Yes. I guess inside of it, what's really shaped your approach to business, do you think?
Oh, I think a lot of trial and error, really, and fear of failure and a bit of terror along the way. And I think, I've made plenty of mistakes, and people say entrepreneurs are actually risk takers, and they probably are, but in my case, I'm actually quite risk averse. So I don't like to take too many risks. I don't like to bet the ranch, so you don't want to kind of make a mistake because you have to, because that's how you learn and that's how you win, is by trying things. But, that curiosity and that not willing to bet the ranch every time, it's not a bad cocktail for sort of getting stuff done. I think, what investment banking taught me is my boss would say, look, get on a plane, go and see them, and to a guy from Te Awamutu being told you've got a kind of unlimited air travel budget was kind of remarkable. And there's a lot of fear in that, but also a lot of chutzpah. You just got to, you front up, you make your pitch, and you try and convince someone to do something. And we can underestimate the power and the impact that has on them from you actually making that little bit of effort. It's easily underestimated. We think, they won't see me, they won't go. But if you say, look, I'm here from New Zealand and I've come to see you about this, they're really quite open to what you want to say. Yeah.
And has that really shaped in some ways the sort of businesses that you've been involved in to date?
Oh, absolutely, because if you look at the product businesses we've been in, like the roof rack business, and as an example where we saw a very, very clever set of people making really great product, but about 2/3 of their sales actually embedded sales into the car industry themselves. So they had embedded manufacturing inside the Ford plant or the GM plant. So it was a very low risk and captive business, but it was also one where you got 16 weeks of orders from them, and that was it. That was your business. And I tell you, it was pretty exciting in the GFC watching a little zero being the next order pop at week 16, and then another week of GFC crisis, then there's another zero behind it. So you just see all these zeros of sales coming towards you with 16 weeks notice. It's really quite hard to make money already, but when sales are zero, it's actually really hard to make money.
It's scary stuff.
Yeah, and just had that perfect foresight. It's quite interesting. But what we saw there was a business where we could apply some product design expertise because we had some capability there, and we could internationalize it because I really thought it was a great story to tell around this product. And it was really quite interesting because I was sitting in due diligence, and a lot of people think due diligence is about spreadsheets and leases and reports and auditing and IP, all this stuff, right? People go through that, and that is important, but I think the real thing is that you get insights and talking to the people who are actually trying to sell the business or they want to continue working with you. And this guy said, well, we've tried this roof rack and it's the quietest we've found. And it's the number one problem that people have with roof racks. They don't like the noise it makes when they're driving along. It drives them crazy. And if you're driving up to Mount Buggy, you're going skiing for the weekend, you hear that roof rack every hour in the car, right? So I thought, this is interesting. So I said, have you got the quietest roof rack in the world? And he said, well, I'm brethren, so I only believe in empirical evidence, so I haven't tested a roof rack, so I can't say that. I thought, well, I can say that. So we bought this business, and with the problem of GSC, we thought we've got to pivot this to be a consumer business in the world, and the thing just took off. It was quite remarkable. We changed the point of sale, and we gave it it went from Hubco Automotive Systems to Whisper. It's actually said something about the product or evoked some kind of image in the consumer's mind, and it was really, it's a really good example of what we tried to do and take a business from here to here. It's a lot of fun.
And so when you're thinking about investing or buying into a business, often the way, I guess, I was almost taught by private equity people was around thinking about the exit, like what the end game is. Is that something that you think about when you're, say, buying into a business like that?
Well, I guess there's a yes and no in that. I think today I would say that I've never bought a business thinking I want to sell it, because I always think if I do this business forever, is that a good idea? And if you're thinking, well, actually, no, I don't want to own it forever, then maybe that's telling you something about your business case, So with your value-adding plan, you sort of work through, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. But, the world's a big place. There's a lot of opportunity out there, and I think to buy something to sell it, I know that is the private equity model, and that works, and it's released a ton of value at a lot of places, and that's a good thing. For me, I just want to do things which are long-term, enduring, and I can be a partner and I can add some value for as long as I can, really. Right. So I've had a bit of luck along the way, so I've got a few savings, so I don't have to sort of sell something to crystallise something to go and do something else. So I think it's my philosophy now would be to say, look, I want to buy it and own it and keep it, and if that's good for my kids and their grandkids, and that'd be quite good.
Yeah, so you're really thinking about those intergenerational type things as you go through life. I guess if I think about business, business really benefits from diversity of thought. That sort of different perspectives, insights people bring to a business is really important in my mind. What is it that you think that you bring to Aurellan, that has attracted you to working with this business?
I have had the Gower Family Office for about 12 years, and I really set that up because I knew being an entrepreneur, you're a direct capital investor, right? So I need to have someone else running the kind of family money, the savings, if you will, which was independent of the activity that I would do every day. And I call it the market fund, and I hired someone to do that. And that was really good, allowing me to focus on what I needed to do on the direct investing side, where I'm putting my personal effort into a business with capital to try and make it work. And it means that they could really concentrate on, what kind of portfolio settings make sense for them. So I think I really understand that idea that you've got to separate what you might do as an individual investor based on your background, rather than bring that perspective of that to that room or that table, that meeting where people are looking for your perspectives and insights rather than this is what you've got to do because you've got the direct investment obligation,
Yeah, no, cool. So it might be a great opportunity to get a bit of feedback from you. Tell me about working with Chris and I, how have you sort of found that?
It's been good. I mean, as I said before, I like backing a business with a really clear proposition. I've wanted to be deeper involved through the family office and that whole market portfolio that I talked about before. And I think you and Chris have very complementary skills, and that's to your strength. I think, winning the partnership with Wilshire is a real coup, and a credit to you both. So congratulations there.
No, thanks.
Yeah. And I think, what I can do is really try and just bring any perspective from my background, which is helpful around just what it is you're trying to do. I want to invest for the long term. I don't want to have to face a sale possibility or have one of the partners say, I want to sell my shares because it's been 3 years now or whatever. And I think between you and Chris and the other people you're bringing on board, there's really a lot of opportunity, a lot of potential to do some really good quality work in this field in New Zealand. I'm really happy to back that.
Yeah, and I think Campbell, you bring really interesting insight in terms of, having thought about investing over the long term. Your experience in running your own family office, I think, is invaluable for us. I know Chris and I have been super impressed with this sort of different perspective that you bring to us in terms of a business, things like helping us with branding and thinking through different business things. It's been really interesting to get that different insight into what we're doing. So, yeah, so far, great.
I think the family office thing is quite interesting too, because there must be, I think, a lot of people in New Zealand, perhaps in my position, where they have, and even more so than any small thing I've done, they really built a tremendous business, a tremendous franchise of great value, and they've been working at that in a very narrow way for 50 years, and fantastic. And there are a lot of examples of that. But at some point you want to think about, okay, I've done that whole direct investing side, which has all its own idiosyncrasies and knowledge requirements and daily activity and a lot of risk associated with that. You really want to think about building that market portfolio of assets that somebody else runs. So I've been doing that for a while with the family office, and I think, with Aurellan, it's really the opportunity to do that in a proper way, and particularly to invest with skill and expertise on things outside New Zealand, because we can all get quite narrowly focused here, and our local available investment opportunities aren't necessarily representative of what kind of portfolio we should have, given the other things that we do in our lives.
Yeah, and certainly, while I'm not a family office myself, what I observe is often people with those really successful businesses, they're getting older and things, but they're still operating in their sort of safe, happy place, running their businesses, and then there's that looming issue of thinking about it intergenerationally, that, one day they're not going to be around, how that sort of portfolio of investments goes on into the future beyond their lifetime as well. It's an interesting area.
Yeah, not every founder, and I'm one of them, wants to hand the business they've built on to their kids. It's never been a goal of mine. I wouldn't. I mean, my life's been about creating opportunities for them, not to give them obligations, which is, hey, you should now run the business that I was in love with, right? It's not really something I'd think about for them, but from an investment perspective, I'm sure a lot of founders are thinking, is that the right thing for me to do? Is that something they want to do? Is that the best place to put that business? So I think this way you can actually have that. You can still run the business as you want to, with professional outside management, and still have that market portfolio which is going to look after those intergenerational needs of your family, rather than think I've got to sell the business to give them the cash to go and do those things.
Yeah, and Wilshire brings us that 50 years of experience of working with, institutional and family office investors in the US, and all the insight and expertise that comes with that as well.
Yeah, it's super exciting.
Right. Okay, let's turn to this segment of podcast where we sort of explore you more as a person, I guess, rather than the business aspects of it. I know you like to support local things, New Zealand things. These are all New Zealand businesses that you've created and grown, often exporting. What's a cool thing that you've recently bought that, tells us something about you?
A cool thing I've recently bought. Actually, I was given a cool thing. It was a bottle, actually 2 bottles, of Thompson whiskey. Very generous friend. So I quite like whiskey, they knew that. But for me, Thompson whiskey is really about taking the basic 3 ingredients you have in whiskey, in every whiskey in the world. There's those ingredients, you put them in a barrel, and the maker tries to make their own particular style and blend, but then you've got to tell a story about it. So it's not just this cocktail of ingredients, it's actually a whole story about why you did things the way you did and why you tried to create that. And I think, they're real craftsmen there, and it has that feel to it and this desire to be really, really excellent at what they do. And we all want to have an old idea like making whiskey, but actually give it a new spin, turn it into a new thing, and actually find new customers with that. And I'm really impressed with what they're doing. Yeah.
And hasn't New Zealand come a long way? If you think when we were young people, New Zealand made alcohol was things like, I can remember things like 45 South and Wilson whiskey. So you're talking about a completely different mindset, completely different approach to business. You're talking about Kiwis really stepping forward and going, we can make really amazing quality products and bring those to the world stage. So that's cool to see that sort of mindset coming through. What about a book you'd recommend to people?
A book. Well, I've just finished Hampton Side's book about James Cook. I'm a bit of a Churchill nerd, James Cook nerd, and they may not be fashionable these days, but they're fascinating people, and they're definitely a product of their times. And what he's done, he's written this book. You think, well, what new insights can possibly emerge from yet another story about James Cook's third voyage? And it's very well crafted, it's very well written, and there are new things to learn there. It's really a very well written book. Yeah, I'd recommend that. Yeah,
amazing person, Cook, when you go through the history and see things like Fiordland, where he went to, sailed all the way from England to do the passing of Venus, the passage of Venus. Quite incredible times. Yeah,
I've actually been down there on my boat, and you can look out in some headlands, and actually some of the charts there are still representing lines that he drew.
Yeah.
It's quite remarkable.
Yeah, quite remarkable. What's one lesson that you've learnt the hard way in life?
I think, as an entrepreneur, the challenge is that you tend to run the company, you tend to start it and drive it, but really you don't want to fall in love with your own ideas. You really do need to try and get a sense of the room, and that can be hard for people to have that psychological trust where they can challenge you on something. But that's a good thing. It doesn't really matter how I feel about it. It's really because the market's brutal, and they'll rapidly tell you whether it's a good idea or not. So it's really about how does your idea solve somebody's problem. That's really what they're buying. They're buying their problem's getting solved by the thing you're trying to sell them, rather than it just seem like a good idea.
Yeah, I know that in establishing my own businesses, I've always enjoyed talking to people who have highlighted the problems, not the sort of beauty of the idea that you're bringing to market, because, clearly you back yourself when you set up a business, but you really need to know those blind spots in what you're doing. And so the insight's always in the negative feedback and people picking a hole in your idea, right?
Yeah, and I think there are many different perspectives that you can have. Like some of the best people I work with in the finance industry, actually English lit graduates, right? Because they know how to process a whole lot of information and come down to the succinct message within that. So it's not necessarily that you have a technical capability in the field, but you just got a perspective that we should listen to.
Yeah, no, it's super interesting. What might people not know about you?
Well, hopefully a very great deal.
Right. Interesting. What about coffee, tea, or something stronger?
I think definitely a Thompson's whiskey.
Right. Yeah. No, well, we'll do that, right? And I think that's a good spot to draw things to a close. But thank you for the amazing insights into what you've done through your career to date. I've always had a huge admiration from afar in terms of watching your business success. I was very conscious of phil&teds when you bought into it and the growth that business experienced. Incredible how you turned a business that was really successful in terms of its New Zealand focus into being a truly successful global export business. And so I thought that was a really outstanding example of smart business thinking, basically, of taking a good product and, taking it to the world rather than just trying to fight for the New Zealand market share. So well done you. It's great to see and great to be working with you as well in terms of your Aurellan business. I know one of your mantras is to have fun along the way, and certainly that's something that we're looking to do. We're in a serious industry group, but at the same time, we don't want to take ourselves too seriously as we go. Occasionally enjoy one of those Thompson whiskies, but in terms of today, that brings us to a close of another of our series podcasts on intergenerational thinking. Thanks to Campbell and the insights that you've provided. Equally, go to our website, sign up for our research, make sure you follow us on LinkedIn as well, and tune in for our next episode of our podcast, which will be coming to you shortly. So thanks, everybody.
Thanks for listening to the Aurellan podcast. Everything we've shared is general information only, not financial advice. If you'd like guidance in your own situation, please talk to a licensed financial advisor.